Tonight, the president visits tornado-ravaged Alabama after declaring a major disaster in the state where 23 died.
And a slap on the wrist.
I feel very badly for Paul Manafort.
The president's former campaign chairman sentenced to less than 4 years in prison.
The motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Republicans say a wide-ranging resolution against hate fails to focus solely on anti-Semitism.
All this as the Democratic field in the 2020 election begins to take shape.
The economy is very, very strong.
Plus, today's job report comes in lower than expected. Coming up tonight on Faith Nation.
The Commander-in-Chief takes on the role of Counselor-in-Chief. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder.
Well, President Trump touched down in Alabama to visit the tornado-ravaged area.
The deadly twisters killed 23 people, carrying wind speeds of up to 170 miles an hour and spanning a path of destruction a half a mile wide. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy is here now with more on the president's visit. Ben?
Well, Jenna and John, today President Trump saw the damage firsthand. The National Weather Service says this is the worst tornado to hit Alabama since 1932. The Commander-in-Chief and First Lady met with victims and their families in some of the hardest hit areas. You can see the first family here walking among 23 crosses honoring those who died. 90 others were also hurt. The president said that he wanted to come the next day it happened. Now, we're talking about an EF4. It is the deadliest tornado to hit the U.S. in nearly 6 years. Journalists covering the trip reported that President Trump even signed Bibles for volunteers and survivors at a Baptist church in Alabama. Volunteers from all over the country have poured into Alabama to help in the cleanup effort. The governor has ordered flags in the state to be flown at half staff until Sunday. John, Jenna?
All right, thank you, Ben. Well, for the Democratic majority in the House, figuring out how to condemn anti-Semitic remarks made by one of their own members proved a big challenge this week. Lawmakers finally passed a resolution yesterday, but not before drastically expanding it. Jennifer Wishon joins us to explain.
What began as a House resolution condemning anti-Semitism morphed into a 7-page document condemning anti-Muslim bigotry, along with a whole host of other bad behaviors. It all started when freshman Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, one of 2 Muslim members of the House, suggested lawmakers who support Israel are pledging allegiance to a foreign country. Talking to reporters on his way to Alabama, President Trump called Thursday's vote a disgrace.
The Democrats have become an anti-Israel party. They've become an anti-Jewish party.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were offended by the expanded resolution.
We are having this debate because of the language of one of our colleagues. Language that suggests that Jews like me, who serve in the United States in Congress, and whose father earned a Purple Heart fighting the Nazis in the Battle of the Bulge, that we are not loyal Americans? Why are we unable to singularly condemn anti-Semitism?
A question asked passionately by members on both sides of the aisle.
We came here because of an anti-Semitic remark. And we came here to condemn anti-Semitism, but this resolution, as changed up over the last hour, now condemns just about everything.
Along with anti-Muslim rhetoric, the resolution condemns past white extremist attacks on African Americans, bigotry against Latinos, Native Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, other people of color, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, the LGBTQ community, and immigrants.
We left out the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We left out Wiccans. We left out Jehovah's Witnesses. We left out disabled people who are often discriminated and had hateful things about.
And some members were outraged Congresswoman Omar wasn't called out in the resolution. Speaker Pelosi pushed to keep her out of it.
There's one resolution addressing these forms of hatred, not mentioning her name, because it's not about her. It's about these forms of hatred.
The debate comes as American support for Israel is falling. When asked about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a new Gallup poll finds 59% of Americans say they're more sympathetic towards Israel. That's down from 64% just last year. The divide among Democrats over support for Israel may have political implications heading into 2020 as the party works to win back more moderate Democrats President Trump won in 2016. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Jennifer. The president's former campaign chairman is heading to prison, though serving a much lighter sentence than expected. Paul Manafort got less than a 4-year sentence from a financial fraud case. Sentencing guidelines for the crime carry up to 20 years in prison. The president said today he felt for Manafort, bashing the special counsel investigation.
I feel very badly for Paul Manafort. I think it's been a very, very tough time for him. But if you notice, both his lawyer, a highly respected man, and a very highly respected judge, the judge said there was no collusion with Russia.
President Trump stopped short of saying whether he will pardon his former political consultant. Manafort will face another judge for sentencing in yet another case involving conspiracy charges that could tack on an additional 10 years to his sentence. Well, as the 2020 Democratic field takes shape, one major player has yet to jump in. Will he or won't he? That's the question many people are asking of former Vice President Joe Biden, who's reportedly meeting with advisors about possible campaign messaging and strategy.
And then with election now a little more than a year and a half away, there's still a bit of time. But as other potential candidates for the Democratic nomination start dropping out, many are waiting with bated breath for Uncle Joe to either step in or step away.
And for more on the 2020 election, we're joined now by Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, let's start with the elephant in the room. People want to know, what's Joe Biden going to do? Will he or won't he jump in?
Yeah, I think he's going to do it. I think he just wants to dot I's, cross the T's, and make sure everything, that he has a path to victory. And I think that really is the most important thing for Biden at this point. So we'll see. Uncle Joe, yeah, we'll be calling him a lot. Some people call him crazy Uncle Joe. That's not me saying it. I'm just saying that he's been out there, so he's going to run.
Yeah, we'll have to see what name President Trump possibly gives him.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
David, what are Biden's strengths and weaknesses?
Well, he's authentic. That's his strength. And here's his weakness. He's authentic. I mean, in other words, he calls it like he sees it, and it has led to a lot of gaffes along the way. Donald Trump, same thing, right? Very authentic, but that cuts both ways. I had a chance to speak to him about 11 years ago, actually. 11 years ago? Did I just date myself? During the 2008 presidential campaign, he was. Thank you, John. Thank you for pointing that out. There I am. Look, and he grabbed me by the lapel. And I've never recovered since. I haven't washed the jacket either. But we were there in Iowa, and here's what he had to tell me about. Now, this is interesting. His first wife, we can come back on camera for a second because I think we're going to run out of video, but his first wife and his daughter died in a car accident many, many years ago. I think a lot of folks know that. Killed by a drunk driver. We had a chance to talk about this, and this is the authenticity that I'm talking about. He wears it on his sleeve. It was pretty emotional. One of the most emotional interviews that I've been a part of. Have a look. I know this is emotional for you still, 30 some odd years later. Can you emotionally take me back there just a little bit and tell me a little bit about what was going on and how that probably never leaves you till today?
Well, look, I've been really lucky. When something like that happens to you, it's like there's a big black hole in your chest, and you feel like you're being sucked in to that black hole. But my mom has an expression. She said, "God sends no cross you cannot bear." And she said, I remember literally the week of the accident, her saying, "Joey, out of everything horrible, something good will come if you look hard enough." And I thought that was the cruelest thing in the world someone could say. But it's true. Nelia, my wife, was looking down on us. I mean, we really, you just never, it never leaves. But you know, there comes a time, and it happens earlier than you think, there comes a time when the memory brings a smile to your lips rather than a tear to your eyes.
His liberal critics will call him crazy Uncle Joe, but right there we saw Uncle Joe, the authentic Uncle Joe that has feelings, that cares about people, and it's really a big part of his calling card politically.
Really a great and revealing soundbite. Thank you so much for digging that up. The Democratic Party isn't the same Democratic Party as it was even when he left the office. So how do you think Democrats now would feel about Joe Biden being the party's nominee?
It's a great question. Here's the choice Democrats have. Are they going to, they have to win back Trump voters, right? Or do they? Joe Biden can win back the Trump voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, the blue-collar Rust Belt Democrats, okay? That is one path. But if they choose to go a different path, then they want to go potentially with minorities, suburban women. That's the way the party is going. So the Democrats are going to have a choice. The sources that I'm talking to in the Democrat Party all say we're not going to win the Trump voters back. Forget about that. Biden's old news. That they believe that minorities and the suburban women, that's the way to go. I personally don't think that is the way to go. I think the way that they're going to win, I think Joe Biden is the Democrats' best shot to beat Donald Trump. I've said that on this program. I still believe it, and I'll still believe it until he gets out of the race, or if he ever gets out of the race. So we'll see. They're going to have a choice to make.
Yeah, David, do you think President Trump loses a lot of sleep thinking about Joe Biden and if he could run?
Publicly, no. Privately, a little bit. I think so. I mean, he doesn't lose any sleep over Pocahontas, as he says. That's his words, not mine. Or Bernie Sanders, or a few other folks. But I think Joe Biden is one guy that he has his eye on for sure. Kamala Harris is another one. I think she is a sleeper in all of this. And we'll come back and we'll talk on the program about Beto O'Rourke. I'm sure that will be coming.
Real quickly, I want to squeeze in one extra question. The current White House Communications Deputy Chief of Staff, Bill Shine, resigned today. What's that about? Why the abrupt decision?
He was a bit on the outs with President Trump. They didn't quite have that chemistry. They thought they would. Didn't happen. And that's just the way it kind of works in Trump world. It's just a season. It's episode 7 of season 3 of the White House, Prentice style. So Bill Shine, he's voted off the island.
All right. David, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Well, disappointing jobs numbers for the month of February, but it's not all bad. When we come back, what it means for the economy and the White House.
It seems we've been left alone.
The law states that no person shall convert any person from one religious faith to another.
Who is he?
And yet not one missionary has been charged.
Graham Staines, nice to properly meet you.
You bring me evidence of illegal conversion by Graham Staines. I'll give you a permanent position.
Need new floors? Empire today makes getting beautiful new floors easy. Impossible? Let me show you. Empire brings hundreds of samples to you. We call it Shop at Home. The floors are high quality and come with great warranties. Plus, Empire handles the installation. You don't lift a finger, and the job's done right. Shop at Home, quality floors, professional installation. That's Empire today.
Get $250 off new floors. Call the special number on your screen now.
Attention! If you currently do not get health insurance through your employer, or if you do not have health insurance, or if you just got divorced or married, had a baby, moved, or lost your health insurance coverage, listen closely. You are eligible for a new health care plan using Health Insurance America. A family of 4 can make up to $97,000 a year and still qualify for a new health care plan. Get coverage for doctor visits, prescriptions, hospital, dental, and vision for as little as $25 a week with copays as low as $0. Health insurance rates have nearly doubled in the last 3 years. Stop paying the rising cost of traditional major medical and learn how Health Insurance America is saving people thousands of dollars a year on their health care plans. Don't waste hours on the phone or on a government website. Talk to a live healthcare consultant right now.
Call 1-800-940-5020. That's 1-800-940-5020. 1-800-940-5020.
Welcome back. President Trump could meet with his Chinese counterpart in Mar-a-Lago as soon as this month, though the White House Economic Advisory Larry Kudlow would not give a timetable on a meeting or a final deal.
But as the White House works on a potential trade deal with the Chinese over teleconferences and phone calls, the president remains optimistic, hyping a possible deal today.
As soon as these trade deals are done, if they get done, and we're working with China, we'll see what happens. But I think you're going to see a very big spike. A lot of people are waiting to see what happens with the China deal.
Well, the United States added a disappointing 20,000 jobs in February, the smallest gain since September 2017.
Ben Kennedy sat down with President Trump's former economic advisor, Stephen Moore, to help us make sense of the report.
Well, Steve, we're talking about the jobs report released today. Economists were predicting 180,000 new jobs in February, but turns out only 20,000 were created just last month. Your reaction?
Well, there's good news and bad news in this report. Obviously, we want a lot more jobs than 20,000 a month. That's a big decline from 300,000 the month before. We had been on a torrid pace, and certainly that was going to slow down. And we saw kind of, I think this is a temporary pause. But the good news here is that what we saw in terms of wages rising, which is great news for workers, we also have now the lowest unemployment rate in nearly 50 years in this country. And we also are seeing job opportunities, that we haven't seen for workers. So if you're a worker looking for a job, this is about as good a job market as we've seen in half a century.
Now, Steve, President Trump tweeted earlier today that women's unemployment rate is down 3.6% from 7.9% in January 2011. He said things are looking good. Is he right?
It's really good if you're a worker. And one of the reasons we did our tax cut and we did the deregulations was to try to create a very tight labor market so that workers could bid up their wages. And we are seeing nice gains in wages. They're up 3.5% to 4%. That's the biggest wage gain in 15 years. So again, for workers out there looking for jobs, it's a tremendous opportunity economy right now.
Do you expect jobs to heat up this month and we'll see a bit of a rebound in March?
Well, I sure hope so, because 20,000 jobs is way too few. Of course, I expect that to happen. We also need to worry a little bit about the Fed. Remember the slowdown in the economy, because the economy slowed down since the September of 2018, and that really was precipitated by those disastrous rate increases of interest rates by the Fed back then, and they need to reverse course and get us back to the 4% growth path we were on with very solid monthly job gains.
So, Steve, basically, bottom line, 20,000 was not what we were looking for, but also take the good with the bad, right?
You got to do that. And again, if you're an American worker and you're looking for either a new job or if you're looking at entering the workforce, the opportunities are probably as good as we've seen since back in the 1960s.
Wow. Steve Moore, we appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Well, we have often told you about Israel's groundbreaking technology and how it's been described as the startup nation. Much of that technology convened together in one place this week, and CBN's Chris Mitchell shows us how it's changing the world.
Nearly 20,000 innovators and investors from almost every country came to see or signed up online for the largest tech meeting in the history of Israel, the Our Crowd Global Investor Summit.
The summit brings together extraordinary technologies like Beyond Meat that developed a plant-based meat substitute and many more. Very good.
They make water out of air.
We think that we found the solution for the entire world for the new source of drinking water.
They plan to connect the world through microsatellites.
There are 4 billion people in the world that are not connected. They need to be able to choose whether to connect, to be connected.
And they help the paralyzed get on their feet.
It's very innovative. It's perfect. It's so stable. And when I walked down the aisle with it, it was a dream come true.
Our Crowd showcased all these technologies. John Medved is the CEO and founder.
Our Crowd is the world's largest investment platform for investors to invest in startups online and in person at events like this Our Crowd Summit.
At the summit, investors meet innovators. Our Crowd democratizes capital by giving smaller investors an opportunity to invest in cutting-edge innovations, just like the large venture capitalists. After 6 years, Our Crowd is celebrating $1 billion raised for 170 companies.
But the bottom line is changing the world. They call it the double bottom line. making money and doing good.
What's most exciting about today's event is that we're focused on impact, on how startups can tackle global challenges, and how can startups really bring to humanity a huge impact for the better.
Medved explains it as an expression of tikkun olam, the Jewish concept of healing the world. Betty Wu Adams believes Christians can play a role.
God is our first entrepreneur. He created this world out of nothing for the first 6 days. I believe there's a calling for us as Christians to partner with our crowd as we invest in companies that's going to transform and change the world.
Medved sees the summit through the lens of the Bible.
It's a little bit biblical today because the nations are flocking to Israel to see what we can do to help tackle global challenges and how they can bring back those lessons to their own countries.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Our Crowd Global Summit, Jerusalem.
And today on the Daily Rundown podcast, Chris is on there talking about Our Crowd Global Summit, the biggest tech meeting in Israel's history, as you just saw. It highlights the latest and greatest innovations coming out of Israel. Well, today is International Women's Day. Coming up, the story of one Iranian woman, how she went from being a battered wife in a Muslim marriage to baptizing hundreds of former Muslims.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. Professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
Please call 800-717-1065.
Need new floors? Empire Today makes getting beautiful new floors easy. Impossible? Let me show you. Empire brings hundreds of samples to you. We call it Shop at Home. The floors are high quality and come with great warranties. Plus, Empire handles the installation. You don't lift a finger, and the job's done right. Shop at Home, quality floors, professional installation. That's Empire Today.
Get $250 off new floors. Call the special number on your screen now.
Attention! If you currently do not get health insurance through your employer, or if you do not have health insurance, or if you just got divorced or married, had a baby, moved, or lost your health insurance coverage, listen closely. You are eligible for a new health care plan using Health Insurance America. A family of 4 can make up to $97,000 a year and still qualify for a new health care plan. Get coverage for doctor visits, prescriptions, hospital, dental, and vision for as little as $25 a week with copays as low as $0. Health insurance rates have nearly doubled in the last 3 years. Stop paying the rising cost of traditional major medical and learn how Health Insurance America is saving people thousands of dollars a year on their health care plans. Don't waste hours on the phone or on a government website. Talk to a live health care consultant right now.
Call 1-800-940-5020. That's 1-800-940-5020. 1-800-940-5020.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Welcome back. Well, people around the world are honoring the achievements of moms, daughters, and sisters everywhere for International Women's Day, celebrating their cultural, social, and economic contributions.
One such woman is among the many Muslim migrants who escaped to Sweden. She became a Christian pastor over 2 churches, and as Dale Hurd reports, she's also helped lead more than 1,500 Muslims to Christ.
No one would have thought a Muslim woman in Iran simply trying to stay alive in an abusive marriage would one day lead 2 churches in Sweden, lead more than 1,000 former Muslims to Christ, and be invited to speak before the Queen of Sweden. As a young woman in a Muslim culture, Anahita Parsan was powerless and insignificant. Her only hope was that she might one day find a good husband, and she did. But he died suddenly in an accident, and she found herself trapped in a second marriage so violent she expected to die.
I didn't know anything. It was darkness. It
It was a very bad life.
Although she writes about the abuse in her book Stranger No More, Parson doesn't like to talk about it.
It's not easy about speak about that.
You were beaten with a shovel.
Yes.
As a battered wife, living with bruises and cuts all over her body, Parson eventually tried to kill herself with pills, but she was revived at a hospital. Anahita's daughter Roxana remembers when her dad threatened to slit her throat when she was just a small child.
I remember we had gotten cookies. My mom baked cookies, so we got cookies. And then we went for another turn, like we wanted more cookies. Super normal. And we ran up and we're like, more cookies, more cookies. And he came up with a knife, put it to my throat, and he said, ask for cookies again. She was striving to just survive for us, just survive to make a better life for us. And maybe that was something God had implanted in her so that she would have something to hold on to.
Anahita Parson's journey to Christ and across 2 continents is the stuff of Hollywood movies, and one that would include several brushes with death. Parson, her husband, and 2 children fled Iran through the mountains to Turkey in 1984, where she and Roxana faced more brushes with death before landing in Turkey's notorious Agri prison. They would finally make it to Denmark, where she divorced her still abusive husband, and she heard the gospel for the first time. Then she moved to Sweden, where she and her 2 children would walk into a church and announce that we are Christians from now on. Anahita entered the ministry in 2012 and has led more than 1,500 Muslims to Christ. She not only leads 2 churches, but trains other churches on how to reach and disciple former Muslims like these, who fill her church each Sunday, hungry for the God who loves. Parson believes this was foretold in Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 39. But in the latter days I will restore the fortunes of Elam, declares the Lord.
It is about Elam, and Elam is Persian. When I read that, I know it. It's about us. It's about our life. And it's amazing. God told Jeremiah that time, and it's happened just now.
But Muslim immigration has also made Sweden a home for dangerous radicals. And Parson told us she's received death threats and lives with the knowledge she could be killed.
It's a free country, but it's dangerous too.
Were you saying that sometimes you wonder if it's your last day?
Sometimes.
As a young woman living what seemed like a hopeless existence in Iran, Anahita Parson saw no plan and no purpose in her abusive marriage, only random violence. But God had a plan for her to one day be a leading pastor in Sweden.
I think God loved me, and He was in my life from the beginning. He's my everything. I think it's, wow, it's beautiful.
Dale Hurd, CBN News in Stockholm, Sweden.
An incredible story of God's goodness and just deliverance. My goodness.
Yeah, coming from pain and tragedy and then finding redemption and hope. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us for this edition of Faith Nation.
Have a great weekend.